Okay.
No, but I was actually thinking, Andrew, so I just started the recording. You know, yesterday I saw this presentation of Layman at the store about apocalyptarians.
Oh, yeah.
I think he is the most valuable player at the moment. He's on fire.
Oh, I agree with you. Yeah, yeah. Because he takes such a huge palette of stuff and he somehow can juggle it all.
Yeah.
He doesn't get caught in any of these ghettos. He seems to be able to play everything at the same time.
Yeah. He's a true synthesist. You know, like
he's
somebody.
A synthesis. Yes.
Yeah, who puts like this artistic approach. Because like if you follow the presentation at the store, it's like he's on fire. You know, it's like.
Yeah, and he reminds me of kind of Allen Ginsberg or somebody like that who has this kind of like poetic, spiritual palette.
Yeah.
Maybe like the surrealists who wrote all these manifestos.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, I think apocalyptarian.
Yeah,
I can relate to that more than Dark Renaissance because it seems to be that apocalyptarian, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, is really the state where we're at.
Yeah, but what I like about him is that he puts like an artistic touch, like a poetic touch to all of this, and so it's not just philosophy, because you know that is
Marshall McLuhan too. He's very influenced by Marshall McLuhan.
Yeah.
So there's something kind of pop culture. I mean, but deep at the same time, right? He's it's like a wide palette. It's a big palette. It's a generous take on everything.
Yeah.
You know, from Aleister Crowley to Hegel or to he just picks up. He kind of is like a radar. He picks up what's going on.
Yeah, and he's such a fantastic podcaster and communicator. You know, he's just a natural like I feel like everybody who talks to him is so enamored with his openness and his creativity. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah.
No, but the point I was trying to make is that, you know, I was thinking about, you know, this concept. And so it's like when you have a tribe, let's say, and you have and this tribe is kind of confined to itself, and so there's not enough genetic variability, so that there happens something to the tribe. And I think, like, if, you know, looking at the liminal web, and there's not enough information coming from outside or enough artistic transformation into the outside, you know, so then all of the philosophy and all the participants get more idiosyncratic.
And it becomes propositional rather than artistic.
Yeah.
It becomes, I get, we made this critique of philosophy. Of course, both of us love philosophy.
Right.
I think, and study philosophy, and we're not against philosophy, but there is a sense that I feel that there's so much philosophy going on that it's imbalanced between, let's say, the more visionary, metaphorical, expressive, because artistic aspect, which comes from actually not knowing what's going on, not pinning things down to some kind of, let's say, meme or label.
Yeah.
Like, in a way, a meme is the opposite of an artistic production.
Yeah.
Because a meme is trying to, make a boundary around something and say, this is what it is. Whereas an artistic production opens something up.
Right.
So I think that the memes that are good, and there are good memes out there, are the ones that are sort of subversive in some kind of a way. They're not calling attention to some kind of movement or some kind of, I don't know how to say that, but.
Yeah, but there has to be like a translation of, you know, the contents of the liminal web into the real world. That's and I feel like that the artistic endeavor is able to provide that.
Yeah, sure.
And so especially, like, I don't know how your Twitter feed looks like, you know, especially with this Ukraine crisis, and you know, it's like you have all these super intelligent people I have on my Twitter feed.
Sure.
It's like everybody has like a philosophical whatever take on this. It's like, you know, but in some, it's like it's too much. It's like, and it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, well, I wonder about that, is this vampirism of energy that happens. Well, these tech companies kind of vampirize like the energy, the real creative energy, and turn it into memes, turn everything into a meme, which actually neutralizes its nuances or its power or its intelligence or.
No, it's buzzing and booming, and it's all super interesting what Thaddeus Russell and Weinstein and Rosen and all of those people have to say. But it doesn't, what is the net outcome of this? I wonder, except that it's buzzing and booming.
Why does there have to be a net outcome?
Yeah, because it's so much energy and so much intellectual prowess, on display there.
Yeah. Mm.
Isn't it?
Well, sure. I mean, I guess ideas have their own sort of direction and they create their own, they have their own momentum, right?
Right.
And so an idea passes from one person to another, and it develops into a more complex idea, and then that merges with other complex ideas, and then you have this interpenetration of different ideas, which again merges in different, so that process is just kind of a Darwinian evolutionary process of ideas, I think. So I don't understand really what the problem is. In fact, I like that chaotic soup. If there's still ideas that are swirling around and bumping off each other, and not just ideologies which are.
No, the problem. I mean, it's not a problem. It's just something that I'm looking for, because it's like you have, let's say, on one scale, you have Taleb, being an extremist in some sort, and then the Weinsteins and Peterson, like on the other end of the spectrum, and all these perspectives seem in what is the word? Seem not to match to each other, and so you do try to make some sense out of all of this and to synthesize something new. And the argument or the point I'm trying to make is you need people like Layman who are good at synthesizing and form it into something new and bring it into a new form. It's like, so it's not just disparate information and memes out there, but something palpable, and because otherwise it's just noise at some point.
Yeah, well, you have to take the noise and you have to transmute it. I think of everything in terms of alchemical processes, really, because it's just a simple model, right?
Right.
So you have this noise, right? Okay, and then you have to extract. You have lead, and you have to extract the gold from that lead. Or you have garbage, or you have just poison, right? And in alchemical processes, you work with poison.
Right.
Lead poison. You work with people's poisons, and you transform them.
Yeah.
So I guess I think that's the spirit of what Layman does. He has an alchemical kind of sort of disposition. It's not like this is the truth and this is my thing and I'm going this way in this monological way. It's like we take the whole palettes and we allow it to kind of synthesize and dance and move around, and then you create this sort of collage of something that appears to be that it has a kind of a strange melody to it.
Right. Yeah, but I love the alchemical perspective on this, because that's something you do. It's not just something that's not just philosophy, but it's a transformation process, and it's a way of situating you in and within the world. And this act of situation is situating yourself into the world is an act of mutation or transformation, because you transform yourself and the world by it. You know what I'm saying? It's a process. It's not just an intellectual endeavor. It has something to do with will more than anything else.
And the body is the alchemical chamber. So the intellect is part of it, but then there's all then there's the unconscious mind, and there's the pathic world of feeling, and then there's the you know, and then there's the physical body and its needs, and all of these things are you know, in the state of apocalyptic transformation, right? Like that's what the apocalypse is, like the body in a way, right? You know, it's what happens to every body. Is a body endures a kind of apocalypse, and the apocalypse means, you fall apart and you break down all your resistances and your neuroses and your contractions, and all these things arise within you, and then you become a new you, and then this happens over and over again. And if you spiritual process is using that, that's this process of breaking down, of you know, constant transformation, rebirth, death, into synthesizing some new palette.
Exactly, yeah.
But you know, the word apocalypse means to reveal or uncover or show you something, and so in a way the creative process is an apocalyptic process, I think.
Right.
I think that's maybe what Layman is tapping into.
Yeah.
We'll have to send him this and see if he agrees with my prognosis.
He was at the store. He was even mentioning you, like in the first sentence. You know, did you see that?
I think he was teasing me. Yeah.
No, yes, but you know, like looking at, you know, how do you deal with the crisis like in Ukraine? It's like you have, and from my perspective, you can be like a how do you say this? You can suddenly become a foreign policy expert and give your philosophical or political take on the Ukraine conflict, although you never have like studied philosophy, politics or history.
You can fake it pretty easily just by gathering a bunch of information.
You know, it's like everybody was like a COVID expert, and now like 1 week in with you, everybody is suddenly, and especially in the integral and the meta modern scene, everybody now is a foreign policy expert, and it's like, and so yeah. But I don't think that's the right way of integrating that kind of apocalypse, you know, that kind of crisis, you know, because, you know, I think what I'm looking for is a way of how we can hold and embody that thing without losing our center.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so yeah, because as soon as something happens, you know, what McLuhan called the real, like a war like that, something really terrible that just opens up hell. You know, here are the gates of hell.
Yeah,
that's what's happening. People will tend to sort of do a lot of counterproductive things just because it's too hard to bear, and so in a way you have to be quite strong to sit within that and even look at it and see it and
yeah, but that's the question. How do you?
Because here we are in this. I mean, I talk about apocalypse in an artistic sense and blah blah, and it sounds very cute, and you know, but it's actually death, right?
Right.
You know, it's actually people are dying, and you're gonna die, and so it's not a trite thing. No. At the same time, you know, when you have this crisis, there's always the two ways to go. You could make it in more and more of a hell,
right? Even
by trying to fix it, you know, whatever you do, it's like you just think, you know, or something. You can see a new pattern emerging in the world that might make something redeemable. I don't know. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, sure, of course. The question
here. I'm not coming.
No, the question that we're kind of wrestling with is like, how do you act, and how do you embody that alchemical process of integrating hell, or death. I mean, because it's not so like I keep mentioning Thaddeus Russell, but he just said, if that bill in Congress is passed that the United States will support Ukraine with, I don't know, $6.5 billion, that will imply war between US and Russia, and that he is a history professor, right? And so it's not an abstract fear, or abstract thing that has happened. That that could very well affect us all in a very short time. So, but what is the proper way, of dealing with hell and death?
Well, if we're talking about Gurdjieff, he would he would sort of go straight towards it. That's what he would do, I think.
Right.
He would not run away from it. He would go right into it. Which would be a naive thing to do if you were prepared for that energetically. But I think that there's something that the filmmaker, what is his name? This Japanese filmmaker who did
Kurosawa or what?
Kurosawa said he was walking with his brother over corpses, a field of corpses. It was like after the Tokyo earthquake, and he saw corpses everywhere.
Yeah.
And his brother said, "Don't avert your eyes. Don't avert your eyes. A poet never averts his eyes," because he wanted to be a filmmaker and a poet. His brother actually committed suicide, but he survived, I guess, through his art. So maybe his brother went too far into the abyss. This is all speculation, of course, and he was able to transform that into art.
Yeah. I mean, I was just rewatching yesterday the first couple of the first episodes of Vikings.
You're watching that?
Have you seen that?
I saw the earlier series. I got a little tired of it.
But I mean the earlier series. So the very first episodes, and then because like Ragnar, he catches that priest, that English priest. I forgot his name. And so then there's like this ritualized killing of the spouse of the dead previous king, and while she was being killed, the priest was like averting his eyes, was not trying to look at it, because he, as a Protestant, he was not apt to deal with that kind of violence. But at the same time, the son of Ragnar said, you keep looking at this. You have to keep looking at this. That's our way. And so, and because it's just a series, but the way they integrated death, in that series.
Well, the problem I think now is that
so powerful.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that is profound. The trouble is today is like when you watch in media, what are you doing actually? That's my question. Are you looking at the thing, or are you is it some kind of perverse voyeurism?
Yeah, that's good.
So when are you looking at the thing because it needs to be looked at and we can't avert our eyes? Or when are you just being involved in sort of war pornography? Or
the question
I noticed that in myself.
Yeah.
I noticed this desire to turn on and look at the images and see what's going on there, and I want to see I want to see it, and I want to feel the horror of it. But then what part of me is doing that out of some perverse pleasure principle? And when should I turn it off and look at the real in my life?
I don't know if that would be the real definition of it, or a real example, but it seems like that the image is a simulacra of the real thing, and we're looking like the simulacra, like the simulation, like filtered and through the media. But it's a different thing to see a dead body.
To see a dead body, for real, is very different. Yeah, it is very different. I haven't seen very many dead bodies, but I've been to funerals, and you look at the body, and there's some kind of extraordinary, feeling that emerges when you see a dead body. But then when you're seeing all these images of dead bodies all the time, you're not really seeing it, are you? You're kind of, it's hard to see it. And if you did, you would be traumatized. That's the thing, right? If you really saw the horror of what was going on, if you could really see that, you would be traumatized.
Yeah, I mean, that's super interesting. Let's talk about this, because when you see a dead person, like you really see it,
Yeah.
it's like that's the other, and it's there, you know, because because
exactly.
because I mean, it's a bit of a tangent, but there's a difference between, obviously, like when you see an actor playing dead, he's not dead, you know, you see that, because like even if it's Robert De Niro emulating it, there's all like this micro movements in his face that he can't, you know.
Yeah,
But
right.
a real person is, when you see that, there's something like otherworldly about that, about the strangeness of actual death, you know. And that makes something with you, especially if it's a violent death you've witnessed.
Yeah.
Have you ever witnessed a violent death or something?
No, never. But I remember, like, usually when I see horrifying things, I you know, I can handle it, right? My psychology can handle it, because at least in my conscious mind, I can handle it. So I'm not afraid of watching dark shit, right? Like my wife is really afraid. She won't watch anything like that on TV, because she doesn't want to, perhaps because I had a nice upbringing and she grew up in a tougher place than me. So it's not for me, it's more abstract. So then you know, I'm even curious about it, and you know, I'll go there, but I remember seeing, I remember there's a couple of times where I saw, just on TV, I saw a woman being burned alive or something in the Congo. And then there's something like that that haunted me for weeks and weeks and weeks. I couldn't get it out of my mind. That happened maybe 10 years ago, but nothing like that has happened since. I was really traumatized by actually seeing that for some reason. It was just that one image. And I wonder if we all have sort of things like that happen. I mean, many people have. I wasn't there in the Congo. I didn't know those people, but somehow that got to me, whereas most things wouldn't. Or at least they would get to me on a more superficial level.
Andrew, that's super interesting. Like, let me ask Quinn, do you think that, you know, the experience of, you know, the actual experience of the otherness of death, you know, you see a violent death like right before your eyes, that is such a important human experience, and that because of, let's say, Christianity and Protestantism, you know, we kind of averted our eyes to those things, and that's why, you know, we
why, because of Protestantism? I mean,
not just like
well, this is an interesting thought, because Christians are constantly surrounded by images of the most bloody death you could imagine, right?
Right.
They're constantly surrounded by that. Does that make them dissociate from death?
Exactly. That's the point.
Or does that actually make them meditate on it even deeper? I think it can go both ways.
Yeah, but you know, it's like for the majority of our human existence on this planet, let's say, you know, 100,000 years at least, you know, death within the tribe was like a normal occurrence. And if there was an old guy or an old person who could not, you know, function in that tribe, you know, he was just left there where he was, or you know, got a stone to his head or whatever, you know, that and that was like a normal thing. And now, you know, the sick people are carried to the hospitals and to the, you know, it's like we don't see
death is hidden. Death is hidden.
Death is hidden. Yeah. Death is hidden.
Death is hidden in our culture, and yet it's everywhere in entertainment.
Yeah.
Or in a virtual way, right?
Yeah. Or
even I guess, but that probably does come from this Christian thing. I mean, virtual death, right?
Right. And so how much, I mean, obviously,
I think even Illich talked about that. It's the corruption of Christianity.
Yeah.
Is when you make, like, the early crucifixes were not realistic. They were just crosses, and then they became more and more, let's say, forensic,
right,
and realistic and bloody, and that became a kind of voyeurism in the church.
I mean, like, I had like this Norwegian girlfriend, you know, she was, she had like this thing where she was looking at, you know, at this ISIS torture porn, basically, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like people getting beheaded. And it's like,
Why did she have to do that?
I don't know. No, but it's like we're so disconnected from everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's and then the strangest thing happened, and I, you know, and so we have this cathedral here, right? And so it's like this big cathedral in Palma de Mallorca, and it's built, you know, on a kind of hill, and there's a stone wall, and it goes like 20-30 meters down. And one day she was calling me completely out of her mind, you know, because there was a woman next to her while she was taking some photographs of the cathedral, going up, you know, the wall and jumping down, you know, head first, and her head basically exploded like a watermelon. And she saw all that. And then the thing became real suddenly, you know, and, you know, she was, I talked with her on the phone like that day, like for a couple of hours, you know, just to bring her somewhat down. Because, and that's the thing, we're not, you know, it's like the same thing with media. We're looking at those horrific images, but I mean, do they really touch us? That's the question.
Yeah, there's something else. You know, I was in Kiev a couple of years ago.
Right.
And I was walking around, and now I'm looking at the images, and what I try to do is I try to remember the places I was at, and it looks like the places I was at. And so if I can make a personal association with it, it feels more real to me.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is sort of, I mean, I don't know why I would need to do that. I mean, so what? I was there 2 years ago, but it seems to me that the fact that I was there, and I went into cafes and I talked to people, and then there's an extra dimension of horror there, on some level.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of embarrassed about that fact, because why would that be more horrible than anything else?
Right. And then, I mean, obviously, we need to make a connection with those events, in order to understand them. But still, the question remains.
But it's like we're so upset if something is really close to us, or it has some degree of closeness to us. But when it's far away, it's completely abstract.
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you going to say?
No. But no. Go ahead. But the point is, there's the question. The question remains that if you know, in order to be like a strong person, like a strong character, to have a strong, you know, character, and if you not have to, you know, to confront the death and the beast and all of this, and the more we are cuddled, you know, you know, the weaker we get, because I mean, it's like this thing, like hard times.
Yes, but we don't have to, you know, we don't have to manufacture a death to
no, but it's just maybe it's only something,
you know, you just have to go to the hospital once, and then you'll see, in a way, that you will see that this is very close,
right,
all the time,
right.
This death is very close all the time. It's so close.
It is, especially if you get older, and then you wake up night and you fear you don't wake up in the morning.
You wake up at 3 a.m. and you're saying, what happened? What did I do? Why am I?
Who's that person?
Who is this person that I became? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and it's like 20 years. That's nothing, man. Really. In 20 years, like everything that we did is a faint echo in human history, you know?
Not even. Yeah, sure.
It's kind of strange to contend with that. Because like how much energy of what you're doing a day goes into, you know, efficacy in some sense, you know, and to make a difference, and then it's gone. It's kind of strange. All the people that died before us, you know, it's like, I think, you know, we should talk more about death.
Yeah.
Like Jim Morrison did, you know?
It's the first meditation, right? Basically, is okay, okay, I breathe in life. I breathe out, it's gone.
I mean, you are a Buddhist expert. Is there a thing I've read somewhere that there is like the 40 meditations of death, but I never could confirm that. Is there such a thing? Like you meditate about drowning, you meditate about being stoned, you meditate of falling from somewhere. Like the 40 meditations.
Oh, there's an incredible descriptions of the death process in Patrol Rinpoche's book, other books where he just goes into not only death but also different forms of suffering.
Right.
Because death, see, yes, death is something we should think about, but there's also the different forms of suffering which are worse than death, right? Right. So
or dying, let's say, the suffering and dying. Death is an easy thing.
Suffering or dying. Well, there's these descriptions of all the different hells and, what happens to the body when it decomposes, and, all these sort of very, very graphic descriptions. And many of the yogis, they go into what are called charnel grounds. And charnel grounds are not just cemeteries, because there are places where there's wild, dogs and eating corpses and ghouls and, really, really scary places. They go and they, you watch a corpse dissolve. This would be part of meditation practice.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was a cook in a meditation center once, and what they did was they put corpses of skulls of animals on the ground, all over the place.
Oh, really?
So on the ground there was all these skulls of. It was by the sea, so there were skulls of of sharks, and there was like of wolves and all these collections, and so that was on the ground, and then they have these images of copulating deities up here. So there's life and death, and that's
right.
Primordial meditation.
Interesting. What was the book called?
Well, the book that I'm mentioning, it's Patrol Rinpoche. It's a 19th century Tibetan mystic.
Oh, right.
The book
Okay.
is called Words of My Perfect Teacher.
Mm.
It's a terrifying. It has the terrifying descriptions of death and hell, and there's the hot hells and the cold hells, which are very interesting actually, because they really describe the states of hell in forensic psychological detail, and
Like, can you elaborate on that? Like,
people think that Catholics are bad. Buddhists are much worse.
Give an example
of trying to make people go to hell.
Like, do you have one from top of your head?
I wish well, in the hot hells, they're it's just, you've seen Hieronymus Bosch's hell, and there's sort of different ways of being impaled and being cut into pieces, and then over again, and then being, stitched back together, still not dying. There's a lot of stuff with iron. Yes. Anyway, I haven't read it for a long time. Perhaps I didn't. But I didn't absorb it as much as I should have. I like the idea of hot and cold hells, because what it is hot hells are hells of just complete inferno.
Yeah.
Like in war, and cold hells are places of complete abstraction.
But were they
frozen and cold, and there's no.
What were they, like, these depictions, like somewhat ruled in real life? I mean, like, because like what you were saying reminds me like of the instantiation of original German law from the 11th or 12th century, where the first actual book of law was created, and it's like it's horrific, the punishments of people. It's like, have you ever read about what wheeling is? That you get flogged on the ground, and then some guy takes a big cartridge wheel and breaks basically every bone of your body, and then takes your body and puts it within this, within the wheel, so that you're like, and if your if the guy who's killing you is, if he has some mercy, then he kills you. You know, it's like with a knife or something. But that's
yeah,
horrific.
that's how extreme. I remember going to the Chicago Museum of War or something, and seeing all the different medieval instruments of torture,
Yeah,
and how incredibly creative people are with utter cruelty. Right?
yeah.
It's just unbelievable, and elaborate forms of systematic cruelty. It's beyond belief. You can't imagine it.
Yeah, that the ingenuity of the human imagination in regard of punishment and torture. That's and also you know.
And this is the thing. It's like today, this world we're living in has different kinds of hells in it, right? But have we gotten better? Maybe we've maybe there is some argument for progress in that sense.
No, I think
because I don't know about that because like there's a war going on in Ukraine and right now and there's trained soldiers killing and there's a street fight going on. But they're probably, I don't think that kind of thing is going on. Like the Inquisitors, torture chamber, maybe in certain cases, but yeah, I mean, and even war today seems anachronistic.
Yeah, I that's one of the things, I was actually thinking, and I saw that, I think somebody else, I think Weinstein made the same argument that we can't get rid of human nature and of that evil part of human nature. And so the only viable way to survive us basically is to go into space, not because of like a Star Trek fantasy bullshit, but but only we can't get rid of that part of.
Do you think we'll get rid of it by going into space?
No, but by diversifying us, to create different spaceships and colonies, whatever, one global war will not kill us all. And the more you diversify and the bigger your human, the genome portfolio is, it's like, because we can't get rid of our nature. Because of torture techniques, I mean, like Second World War, that was like the,
you can make the world a lot better and you can make it a lot worse. I think there is a better and a worse. I don't think there's just this.
No, but you can't get rid of
this constant state of how human beings are.
No, but you can't get rid of the evil stuff. You can't. It's just
why not? I mean,
why not?
I mean, we have gotten rid of a lot of evil. We've created new forms of evil as well, and I don't know. In the balance,
but we were just talking about the ingenuity of the human, imagination to torture people, and that is just part of us. Since the dawn of humankind, we were killing people in the most, horrific kind of ways. Have you heard of the Boga swing from the Nazis?
No.
It's like it's just like a metal thing, metal bar.
Yeah.
And you hang a person there, like with the knees and with the arms, and so their scrotum is exposed in their ass, and they just took a stick and punched the scrotum.
Yeah.
It's like the most horrific kind of pain, excruciating pain you can inflict on people, or what the Japanese did.
My question is that can we go back into that kind of barbaric state again? I mean, I'm sure in small countries there's probably, in these little backward places like North Korea, maybe those things are still going on, but I don't know. Is that form of evil? I mean, is evil becoming less prevalent in the world, or is there just an equal amount of evil? It's a question. I don't know what the answer is.
I think it's I think being evil is an integral part of human nature, as being good, Evil,
there's always a potential for evil.
And so the
But-
argument that Weinstein was making is just in order, because like if we now have a nuclear war, we will all be dead.
Mhm.
You know, but if you go to space and diversify our genetic portfolio, okay, maybe one colony dies on planet Earth, the population here, but the human genome still survives because we.
But that's just outward expansion of the same problem. I don't know. I don't believe in that. I think it's like, I think you have to go to the inward process.
Don't you have to do both, Andrew, to go outward and inward?
I think you go inward first before you start building monstrosities in space.
Yeah, well, my argument is, or would be that, you know, is not an either or, but like as well as. And so these are two possibilities, and we should use both of them, you know, like the psychological, ethical, spiritual approach, the inward going. And at the same time, you know.
But we can't leave the Earth. We are the Earth. I mean, it's like you can't leave the plate. I don't believe that that's really possible. I don't think anybody has ever. I believe that's just a fantasy. Like, you know, you might be able to do incredible things on Earth. Like why not build something in Siberia instead of on Mars? You know, I don't.
No,
get
from
it.
that reason. Because if there's a nuclear war, then it doesn't really matter where you are on this planet.
You know, if we just poison everything.
So
but then how capable will we of building something on Mars at that point?
No, but we don't need to be on Mars. We just need a spaceship fueled by you know, solar fusion, and that's it. That's not, you know, that's not so far away actually. Like. Give or take 50, 100 years, and we will do that anyhow, because there are people crazy enough to do this.
People are crazy enough to do all kinds of things, but
and so like, and because
is that the point of life? I don't know. It still feels to me like a techno-gnostic dualistic escape mode.
Because it is, of course. It's exactly that. But
there's no escape. I mean, that's the point.
Yeah, but again, like from a point of sustaining the human genome, and from the reasoning that we can't transcend our human nature. And
who cares about sustaining the human? I mean, I don't know. That sounds. Why would I don't know. That sounds like an odd reason for existence, sustaining something.
Yeah, well, that's the reason why we get kids, isn't it?
You mean reproducing ourselves kind of unconsciously for eternity?
Yeah, that's the only. I mean, that's the biological imperative that you find fucking enjoyable. That's like the trick that the biology plays to you, so that the egoistical gene can reproduce itself. And so the biology created this thing called orgasm. And it's like, oh yeah, let's go for it. But the net effect is, you know, reproduction. And, you know, it's like we're biological machines. And so the imperative is survive from a species point of view, you know?
Yeah, yeah. But but from a species point of view, we've kind of reached the end of our evolution in some sense.
No, there always will be technical revolutions and psychological revolutions.
But that's not from a species point of view. That's from the point of view of our psyche and
also our body will transform.
Yeah, maybe a little bit, but I think that
our cocks will be bigger.
You think we'll have enormous cocks and
yeah, we will have
enormous
cocks.
In the center of our
you know,
head.
all the, you know, when we are in space,
we'll have all our massive IQs and enormous
all our
cocks.
muscles will atrophy, except of our dong that will grow to enormous proportions of Priapus, you know, and so. No, come on.
Yeah, maybe that's maybe that's what we need to do is extend our.
Andrew, I'm not saying we shouldn't go inward. I'm not saying this.
No, I know. I just going out into space feels very doesn't feel like the thing to do. I don't know, to me, in a sense.
No, I mean, like for me neither. but you know, to increase our chances of genetic survival, that's of course an option. And I think like at some point we have to consider this option, you know, because like what happens?
I think maybe we could go into, you know, build things in space but I don't think we could find a home in space. I think this is our home. I don't buy it. We might be able to build complex kind of scientific research centers on Mars and things like that, but a home there?
I don't know. I think we're like very malleable, no? And like imagine the second, third generation on a spaceship. It's like where the new generation doesn't know the difference, you know?
You've been watching too much Star Trek.
No, I'm not. I explicitly said that I'm not talking about, you know, a Star Trek fantasy. You know, like if we talk about, you know, sci-fi, I would rather talk about, you know, Battlestar Galactica, you know, this monstrous ship without any computers and
The Expanse was pretty good too.
Yeah, that was good. Yes,
that was a good exploration.
Yeah,
of, let's say, you know, but it's just an extension of the human ego, right? That's all it is. It's the same thing that's happening here, but you know, in a bigger with a bigger parameter.
Exactly.
And it doesn't seem like it gets better in the Expanse. It seems like the world is not better at all. It's worse.
No. But there's so much colonies that they survive. That's the point.
They survive, but they don't get better.
No.
They get cleverer with technology, but they don't. There seems to be no inner development going on there, really. I mean, is there people are just faster and they're better with spaceships and computers and. Where's the inner development? Where's the wisdom?
I completely agree.
It's not there at all in any of these sci-fi, you know, I guess, you know, so it's just the same old thing happening, you know, out there.
I completely agree, Andrew. My only point is that I don't think that we will ever transcend, you know, human cruelty and human psychopathology and narcissism and Machiavellianism and
well, that might be true.
That will never be the case. You know, I mean, there's this theory, and I know that's just a theory, but that we basically killed all the Neanderthals. You know, in the first, you know, war and as a human culture technique, we just killed all of them. You know, all of the other ones. It's just like such an integral part of us, you know, and just because you and me, we grew up in a bubble of relatively safety, like 21st century, like in Western Europe, you know, but that doesn't say anything about human nature. And I think that's the point that Cadell is trying to make with the Dark Renaissance, that there are like these deep impulses and, okay, so how do you contend with that?
Well, there's no denying, that the Kunda Buffer,
is the Kunda Buffer. The what?
That's what Gurdjieff called this part of us that is of human beings that is obscuring us from. It's like a mechanism that there's this complex mythology in his book. Maybe you've read some of it. Beelzebub and his grandson. That that human beings were given this gift of kind of clairvoyance or enlightenment or something like that, but then it was too much, so they developed this thing called the organ Kunda Buffer, which blocks them from enlightenment, which keeps them bound and imprisoned, and it's related to the moon in some kind of way. You can read Gurdjieff's really
right
sci-fi anthologies, and it keeps us, you know, keeps us in a mechanical state where we just keep reproducing the same thing, rather than evolving as a species. So we're cursed by the organ Kunda Buffer.
That's Beelzebub's story to his grandson,
yes,
isn't it?
Beelzebub. Yeah.
I've read that when I was like 18. I after, you know, coming back to Layman, I was like, he's so enthusiastic about it that I thought yesterday I think I will read that whole thing again. You know.
Well, the idea of that book is that in the reading of it, it's supposed to break apart your automatic thinking processes. So it when you read it, it's like this Baroque nonsense.
Yeah.
But it has a kind of an effect.
Yeah.
And Gurdjieff wanted his students to read it 3 times, but it's an absurd book.
Yeah.
It's just wildly absurd book.
Yeah. Yeah, because he uses all these artificial terms to, you know, describe some psychological.
Yeah, he makes up all these things.
Yeah.
But, you know.
I like that always about his writing. There's another book of his. It's called, I think in English, "The Life is Only Real When I Am."
Yeah, that's almost the opposite experience as this book. But
but it also has like this trick. So it builds up to, you know, a kind of axiom or proposal or solution, and then when he's about to make it, the book stops mid-sentence, and that's the end.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic how
his music is like that too. Have you ever listened to his music?
Well, I saw some theater pieces. Yes. Mm-hmm.
There's a way in which the music never resolves itself.
Yeah.
It's never contained. It always opens up something, so you're left hanging there.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to listen to. It doesn't sound like much the first time you listen to it, and then you kind of get into it, and you think a melody is going to resolve itself.
Yeah.
You think you're going to get somewhere, but then you find yourself hanging in space again. There's this gap.
Like life.
Like life. Yeah. Like, you know, and that was his technique also in his books.
I loved his books. I have to reread them again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Meetings with Remarkable People. I also loved this book, and I think the only one that I haven't read is like there's some book of his lectures, I think.
There's Anatomy of a Myth is the best biography I've ever read. It's a biography of him. I recommend that one.
Right, but it's not.
That's a biography, but you get all of Gurdjieff's ideas in the book.
Yeah.
Anyway. I like the story about him. You know, he kind of like kicked out all of his disciples. He told them to go away, and he spent like years in Paris just sitting at the Café de la Paix writing his masterpiece. You know, he spent like 3 years doing that, and then the whole time he only talked
after a horrific car accident, by the way.
Yeah, after a big car accident, the only people he talked to was children and the waiter, and they called him Mr. Bonbon, and he gave the children all candies. And and after he had spent 4 years writing this book, he destroyed the entire thing because he said that nobody will ever be able to understand it. Yeah. What a
but coming back to that theme, I mean, him and Aleister Crowley, just those two, and there are lots of more of those kind of people. They had an intricate understanding of death and what that means. I mean, like Crowley was a mountaineer and you know, and had several encounters with death, you know, and the same is true for, if you read, you know, that book, Remarkable Meetings with Remarkable People from Gurdjieff, it's like he knew exactly what death is, you know, and how to act properly in the face of it.
Yeah, he would get in car accidents unintentionally. I mean, this is crazy stuff. The idea was that he could keep consciousness, keep consciousness there in any kind of life situation.
Yeah.
So he was pretty happy with himself after his car accident, and he got completely, where he could remain conscious during that whole.
You know, but experience. You know, Andrew, it's like, you know, talking about, you know, bringing all these themes together. There's this Austrian philosopher, Robert Faller, and he talks about, you know, how it's like he's very much in line actually with you know, the Petersonian approach to the world. He's not a conservative, but he observes that we are cuddled so much that we are, you know, lost the way of living properly. And he gives thousands examples of this. You know, if you compare the way we did parties in the 60s and 70s and compare it to how we do parties now, you know, how tame they are, you know.
We're so tame.
And it's like, you know, because like I still have photographs of my parents, like when they were like 25, 30, you know, it's like in the 70s, and it's like they're like the people painted their whole house, you know, in colors. They were dancing and like 30, 40 people and having big 70 years, you know, parties of the 70s. And now we're just sitting there with our phones, and it's like there's no joy anymore. It's so tame, and we're so cuddled, and it's horrific because, you know, what happened, you know, to us and to this, you know, way of the Viking, you know, just to embrace death and to feast and to fuck and all of this, you know. I don't know. It's like you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe, but we have to be careful that there's not a nostalgia for that. But yeah, I do think we're the most tame, sort of conservative. There seems to be this like openness and but at the same time, we're the most tame conservative culture that, you know, has existed probably.
Yeah.
And ever. We're on some level, there's this mass. Well, it's funny because there's people, everybody's walking around with masks, and
yeah,
people are walking around with masks, and then there's, so I was thinking about, I wrote this little essay about masks and needles and lockdowns, and this is
yeah,
sort of,
the big
there's
nerd,
this,
yes.
there's this like there's this desire to imprison oneself within the mechanism, sort of.
Yeah.
It's like completely plugged into the matrix.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's also like a human conundrum, you know, in itself, because you know, the thing that Achilles' mother told him right before he went into bed, you can stay here and live a normal life, you know, become 75 years old.
But he doesn't want to do that.
And but nobody will know you, or you go into bed and you will die, and humanity will sing your song forever. You know?
Yeah, yeah. But it's, there's the desire for fame, but there's also the, you know, Dostoevsky was talking about how if you give people everything, sex, as much cake as they want,
yeah,
you know, where they're busy to do nothing but reproduce the species, and you know, they're just going to have sex and eat cake all the time. They're just going to make things difficult and fuck everything up, and just because. Yeah. Because that's what we are. We're not ever content. We're never. There's a divine discontentment to human nature.
And I think that's, you know, that's the original and the you know, the primal spiritual task, to get to love, that you never be content, you know, that you always have like this kind of war within yourself. Yeah. Yeah.